Sally.
And I'm Steve.
You got it right.
I did.
That's good.
Yeah.
We're random acts of rule.
Right. And we are, Sally, you could be the good.
I'll be the good.
And I'm going to be the bad. And
neither one of us are all that ugly today.
Nope. We're waiting for that ugly mug to come in. And
Yep.
When it comes in, there's a big prize to be given away.
Okay. You want to tell them about the ugly mug?
The ugly mug. The ugly mug contest is basically, the mug itself has got to be ugly, but also somewhere on it, it's got to have the ugly. Because we want the good. We want to line these up. You know, we could go national or something, and we need to have that ugly mug. Well, but these are too beautiful to be ugly.
And we have the ability to change our minds.
That's right. That's right.
I can be the good or the bad.
And it's come to mind that since I am a coffee roaster, it's sort of a side job, and I love the job and stuff. We have empty mugs.
I know.
And it's my fault. So we will be having piping hot next show, Secret Gardens Roasters coffee from our
Fantastic.
farm.
I look forward to it, and I'll hold you to it.
Oh, well, you hold me to it, and I hold myself to it. And the only thing that might fail me is my mind.
Oh,
because I forget a lot.
Well, So let me remind you that we are on valleytv.ca.
See? My mind already forgot that's how we start the show.
If you'd like to send us some mail at hello@valleytv.ca, we would appreciate it. We'd like to hear if you have something you'd like to hear us discuss or look into because it's bothering you or you really like it.
That's right. So attention, Sally, if it's bad. Attention, Steve, if it's good. Okay, if it's ugly, you can attention both of us, I think.
Yeah,
and I think that's the way it should be because, Sally is really good at bad, and I'm really bad at good. So that's the way it's got to be.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so anyways, send it in. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it the next show if we get it. We already got a topic that's come in that hopefully we'll get on the next show, and it's going to be interesting.
So if this is your first time watching us, we have a bell.
Oh, yeah.
And we have a bell because we have a tendency to wander a bit. So we'll get started on a topic and it just races off that mountain onto another one before we know it. And it's our job to try and keep it back on track. Sometimes it doesn't work and we just keep on going over those mountains.
See, if Sally was rambling on, I get to bail her out. She's out. I got to tell her why, though. I say, I'm going to say, you're rambling on, Sally. And the other thing is, I've added a bell bonus round or whatever you call it. If you watch the shows, I say
and stuff like
and
that.
stuff and stuff like that. And I say stuff and stuff and stuff. So I'm ringing myself out. Sally's ringing me out also. I'm going to try to get rid of the stuff. We got too much stuff from the Steve, and we don't have no stuff from the Sally. And we're going to keep good stuff in there and bad stuff and ugly stuff without the word stuff. Good. That's the problem.
Good. Maybe you need a new word.
Woo!
Maybe look that up in your thesaurus.
So here is our props. We're going to have props. We're going to add fruit and vegetables as the season goes on for Secret Gardens Farm. So here's our jar with our topics. And there you see our old business cards that are no longer business cards. They're topic cards. And then you got our 45. It came off the wall of the packing house. We like to do a lot of music. So we stole Parrot Records at Green Grass Home. And on the flip side is If I Had You, that's side A. And then on top of that, we have our bell, our famous bell. That also came from the packing house because I get rung out at the packing house a lot of time for talking too much. And I'll ring myself out because I'm now talking too much again.
Okay, well, let's each pick a card.
Okay, I'll do the shaking. You do the baking. And we'll see what we're making. Okay, here we go.
Oh my God, he thinks he's a poet.
Hey, I am a poet, I know it.
All right.
You got a card, you can throw it?
I do.
Okay, here we go. Rock and roll. On with the show. What do you say? What do you know? And coming at me with my eyes shut. And the card, I'm going to take this one right there. Okay, we'll close it up with the record. And we're going to look, ladies first. What do you got there?
Declining fisheries.
Declining fisheries. Ooh, I got an interesting one. I hadn't seen this one before. Unsightly premises. When or if to report. And I think this is something that every community has to deal with, and it's a contentious subject to say the least.
Okay.
So we don't shy away from contentious subjects. So if Sally gets the toss, we're going to do declining fisheries, which
Okay.
has come out of there a couple times, and we haven't talked about it, so maybe
All
we
right.
will. Okay, I'm going to try to get a better spin here.
All right,
Okay.
and I'll choose side B.
And you're
which
gonna
is
choose
the
side B.
green grass of home.
Green. She's going green grass. So I'm going to try to get a good spin here, which I haven't been. Look at that. That's one of my best
that's
ones.
very good.
And it is side B.
Okay.
So there you go.
We're going to talk about declining fisheries.
Okay, which means
Now, are you talking inland fisheries?
There would be mostly inland fisheries, but it's a federal fish in some cases. So it's sort of interesting. I'll sort of set the scene on declining fisheries because where I come from, Spence's Bridge, of course, our economic driver for our seasonal community was always a steelhead. And the steelhead was a fish that was best of class in the world. In the world. You heard me right. Best of class in the world are wild Thompson River steelhead, which incredibly flowed right through Spence's Bridge as the greatest place to fish for this incredible specimen. And when you have best of class in the world, you would think that would be on a priority list, not only of the provincial government, but the federal government. Because best of class in the world means it's good for BC, it's good for Canada, and it's good for certainly the community of Spence's Bridge. We were, before the steelhead season was effectively shut down, although officially it's not, if the return ever returned to numbers of 850, not to get into numbers, but it would be open. The months that it's open is October, November, and December. Those are not bonus months. Those are not, busy months for any small community in our area.
And I would say that would be hardy folks standing out there in their hip waders in the Thompson River casting for...
Yes. In fact, Sally has hit on something. They came to Spence's Bridge from all over. Japan used to have at least 30 fishermen come every year, and they'd stay for anywhere from 2 weeks to a month. And to Sally's point, holy man, in November and December, when they're there fishing in big numbers, it got so cold sometimes. When it gets into the minus 20 zone, their lines freeze after their first cast. They can't even keep casting because you're right. It's brutal weather. They can't keep any fish. The rules are you can't even take it out of the water. So if you land one of these treasured fish, you can take a picture cradling it in the water so you can show you've caught it. And the reason they're best of class in the world is back in the day when we had an actual fishing derby and the run was 20,000 strong, 20,000 strong, we had a fishing derby, steelhead fishing derby. They not only could keep a few, they'd weigh them, and the trophies are still displayed in the packing house. And if you look on them, a lot of 32-pound steelhead. A 32-pound steelhead is one of the biggest steelhead in the world. And what made him the best of class in the world is they came through Hell's Gate. They sort of rested as they went up the Thompson. And when they hit Spence's Bridge, this fish, I interviewed 5 fly fishermen, some of the best fly fishermen in the world when I was writing for the local newspaper. And they said pound per pound, this was probably the best fighting fish they ever ran into. And these fishermen are the elite fishermen of the world that came to Spence's Bridge. Tolstoy, Hemingway, those are a couple names that came to Spence's Bridge.
Now, I don't know a lot about steelhead.
Yep.
I do know a lot about sockeye salmon.
Okay.
So where are the steelhead going?
The steelhead have, they go up the Nicola River and stuff, and they go back out into the ocean. And
Where did they spawn?
They spawn in the Nicola and also the Bonaparte and what's that?
The Skeena River?
Nope. And anyways, and they basically, I think, geez, it's been so long. And I knew this subject. This is my baby. Anyways, they spawn in the little rivers and they go up. And the problem is, that's part of the problem is habitat. The river temperatures are so high right now that the survival rate is very low, and we haven't addressed habitat. Still to this day we haven't. We should have a long time ago. The other big problem is, and this is where the political problem comes in with it, that has really sort of strangled the red tape around the steelhead is they open a sockeye run in the mouth of the Fraser. And that run also is the route for the steelhead. So the bycatch, the mortality rate is very high. And believe it or not, they open that for 2 days only, for 12 hours. October 20th, 21st is typically about the time they open it. And if you follow the Albion test fishery, which is anybody can, and we do. We used to have the numbers on the chalkboard in the packing house, because if the steelhead got to 2021, we knew there would be an opening. That meant there was 850 some fish coming down. But not recently, the numbers have been 3 or 4. So they're not opening anything. But the thing is, they get caught in this commercial fishery that's for salmon, and we lose them. And so you actually have to have the provincial government talking to the federal government. And we actually had the commercial fishery, the father-son duo, and they came to Spencer's Bridge. We had this big meeting. We need to save the steelhead. And they came here and told us why this commercial fishery, it's a chum fishery. It's not a sockeye. And a chum is really not a prized fish. It's used more for, say, pet food and stuff. But they go out because that's what they do. It's a family thing. It's traditional. And they go out there. And so listening to these families, it was very moving. And so we understood them. And they also understood us, why it was supported. So we got the maps out after the meeting. And they said, just move it from zone A over here to zone C. We still got our chum over here. And your steelhead are over here, and we won't catch them. I says, well, why doesn't the federal government do that? He says, because it's heavy lifting. They got to change regulations. You got to get it to them. They got to say, okay, that's a good idea. We're going to do it. And it's never been done. So there's one easy solution, but it's rolling up the sleeves and doing some hard work. And it's our federal government working with our provincial government. I had ministers meeting in my 10 years, at least 5 with ministers at UBCM to talk about this steelhead issue.
So I admit I know very, very little about steelhead.
Right.
I do know that there is a steelhead nursery,
A hatchery,
at Powell Lake,
Yep.
Powell River.
Yep, there is.
Is there any way we could take baby steelhead and plant them?
Yeah, yes, there is. This is a big another point of contention. So you've got these fly fishermen are the best fishermen like in the world and from the province. They come there, and so you can't use bait. It's barbless hooks. You can use some lures and stuff, but barbless and fly fishing. And there's 2 schools of thought. It's the only wild steelhead species left in the province.
Yeah.
So the province sort of leans on that as an argument to not establish a hatchery. The other side of the argument is the fishermen that say, well, if we don't establish a hatchery, and they're saying establish a hatchery with the wild steelhead eggs, so you keep the integrity of the species there, but the true purist fishermen don't want a hatchery. And the other argument is, well, if we don't have a hatchery, we're just not going to have any steelhead.
That's right.
So what's the point of it maintaining it? We can't fish for it, and now we're down to a few hundred steelhead. So we have to think about having a hatchery. And we came, the Otways, Mr. Bill Otway, before he passed, we actually explored. We had a property owner that was on the river that was willing to put the hatchery there. We went and talked to the MLAs of the day, and actually one of them walked out of the office. I was at that meeting, and the other, there was one left, and I got into such a tussle with the MLA that was left there that at the table that I picked up all my stuff and walked out because I knew he was going to walk out of the office. But at the end of that meeting, it turned out that they decided they wouldn't entertain. That was a hatchery conversation. So we have had a serious conversation about it because of the state of the steelhead. So that was a very good question. Yeah, you could do it. But there was 2 schools of thought, and now, there's still people fighting for the steelhead, though. Some real good advocates down in Victoria and things like that. The fight's not over, but, until you do something with the habitat and deal with this thing with the provincial and federal government and they get their act together, I feel my grandchildren, and it's all about the grandchildren. When you have what if you had the best of wine in the world, the best of something in the world? What if this river was running through Vancouver, Victoria? Would we be having this conversation right now? I
Well,
don't think so.
The thing is that there have been many moves from ministries of environments, both federal and provincial, where we don't want to interfere with the way nature is going.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, we don't dredge rivers.
Yeah.
We don't take dead trees
Yeah.
out of creeks.
Yep.
We wait until they cause a flood.
Yep. And I'd like to give a little shout out on the still water talking about it. So one of the problems used to be netting and stuff downriver and stuff downriver,
Yeah.
but it used to be that with the First Nations. Guess what? They've taken up the mantle and they've backed right off of that and things like that. So my point is, my argument is, get it. It's always there. Still has always been a traditional food and ceremonial fish for our First Nations, our Indigenous folks, our Indigenous people. And so, if we can just get it back, so they've sacrificed that. If we could get it back to be an Indigenous food and cultural species that is attainable. Then guess what? The sports fishery, the catch and release sports fishery, gets to go along for the ride. That's all. In every meeting, I says, let's just get it back to saying, you know, everybody's backed off of this, but it almost seems like it's too late.
Well, I think that we have to use our heads about these mandates not to interfere with nature. And of course they did with Highway 8.
Yeah.
They have moved the Nicola River back to where it was
I
manageable.
know.
And that surprises me because
Yeah.
for a long time, if Mother Nature did something, we all were to stand back and go, oh my goodness, look at that.
I know. Isn't that interesting, though? It's physically changed to a great degree, anywhere from, say, 50 feet to 300 feet and stuff. The river's been moved, and either man-made or naturally, but it's moved both ways, and with a lot of riprap, a lot of rocks, and that's because you had to choose between where people can live. Because if it didn't move, some people wouldn't have a house or a pump house. But then in the other scenario, look at the people that actually lost not only their homes but their land.
Yes.
The river, and that's where the river stays.
Yeah.
They'll never get their land back, and so
Are they still paying taxes?
and they're
on
still
that?
paying taxes and a mortgage on a house that's gone and they can't build one and stuff. But they're still paying a that's the thing that bothers me a little bit,
Yeah.
and that's where. Going back to our active and proactive government, this is where you've seen this huge disaster. Be proactive. If this happens, we have to have a plan in place. Our insurance companies aren't backing off. The banks aren't backing off with the mortgages and things. So, these people have already suffered enough. And then, they got to find another place to live, and they can never go back there. It's a tough one.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
But the conversation is about the declining fisheries.
Yeah.
Now, our creeks and small rivers warming up is a really big concern.
It is. It is.
Truly is. And it is not something that we have much or any control over other than perhaps some intentional planting of shade trees along rivers.
Yeah, and I brought that up and a couple times, and quite a few times, and my answer was, that's going to take a long time to make a difference. And my response was, they've already mapped out the spawning beds. They know where they are. All that work's been done. It's in the toolbox. Well, you mapped out the spawning beds. Do you know how many people volunteer to plant trees because they want to save our fisheries? So you can't really say, hey, the labor to do it and stuff like that. We can probably find somebody that will donate the dang shade trees. Certain trees grow fast, and they're shade trees and have a good root system, so they stabilize the bank. We should have been doing that a long time ago. It's a great argument. So maybe it only brings it down 1 degree. Typically, it needs to be 19, 20 degrees to be a good habitat, and we're already up to, say, 24, 25 in the Nicola. And now, after the flood, I don't know where that temperature is going to be. Might have helped it, but I doubt it.
I still, remember that saying it will take too long will always
Yeah.
be the dumbest thing. So
It's
start now.
Yeah.
You can't start yesterday.
Yeah.
So start now.
And we know it's not for us, it's for our kids and grandkids.
Yeah.
So start now. Maybe we won't be around to see, a good run of steelhead but it's the greatest steelhead in the world, arguably in the world, and our grandkids and kids will be able to get up close and personal with it. That's worth it. So let's get started now.
Start now.
Yeah, and we can get that the netting, the Albion test fish and netting moved out there so we don't have a mortality rate. I went to one of many meetings, but when I talked to the federal fishery, they were set up at one of the meetings. You know how they have their booths and stuff.
Yeah.
And when we were talking about, it, says, "What's the mortality rate with the steelhead in the nets out there and stuff?" And they told me 40%. That means if they got 10, they have machines on their boats. They're supposed to be able to keep them alive if they get a steelhead. The tanks, and then they let them go, so they're 100% supposed to live. They said their mortality rate still is 40%. Well, that's a lot of steelhead you lose when your run's only a couple hundred. It's a huge amount. Yeah. So they got to do the habitat thing. They got to do that thing. There's other things. There's seals, and there's a lot of things going on, but why don't you take it on now, one at a time, and start to work to recover it? I mean, to lose this steelhead fishery, it would just be a disaster. Do you know the tills for our packing house, and this is how I know what an incredible time, in November are higher than our August tills. August is our highest summer month, but the highest steelhead month is November, and it outdoes it. You know why? Because they not only come in droves, but steelhead fishermen spend like drunken sailors. All they do is eat, drink, and fish. That's all they do. And they just pour, not only to the places they stay there too. It's not just the restaurants.
Oh, yeah.
And so you really lost this So why do you think we were able to stay over January, February, and March, stay open and be a year-round town? Because of the steelhead fishermen. They poured money into right before that, and now we don't have that, and now we close. They literally, when we lost the steelhead fishermen, we lost our year-round town, and now I would classify us as a seasonal town. But before we were not.
Yep.
With steelhead there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's it's one little community, but gee whiz. It's a really important little community.
I'm impressed with the gee whiz, by the way.
I got it.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Not a stuffing.
Yeah.
I got a gee whiz. I'm so excited. Maybe that's my new catchphrase.
Maybe golly.
Golly gee.
We could do golly as well.
What was that? That was the Andy Griffith show, wasn't it? Golly gee or something.
Something like that.
Gee.
Yeah,
anyways, I'm getting there. I can't wait to listen to these shows and see how many stuffs, and this one doesn't count.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I said that on purpose.
Yeah. There have been a couple that I haven't jumped on because I can only ring the bell so many times.
Yeah, so that's really that's why I put declining fisheries. Though I really I think people needed to know what an incredible resource this area had, not for Spencer's Bridge specifically, although it made it a year-round town, so it was an economic driver, unlike any we have, and but the fact that the province and the federal government didn't really take it seriously, because the direct impact, yes, was Spencer's Bridge. They used to fill up when it was 20,000. The hotels in Ashcroft were full. The hotels in Lytton were full. 20,000 people, you can imagine. River. I came here when my dad was first here, and I came visiting Spencer's Bridge. If you went to the banks of this, if you looked at the banks of the river from Spencer's Bridge across to where the Cumsheen, where the Nicola and the Thompson met, lined with fishermen.
Wow.
One after another. They had maybe a body length between them, and they're just casting, and that's when you could keep them. Fishing Derby, the run was 20,000, then it went to 10, and then in 2001 they closed it and made it catch and release. They didn't close it, but so it was I think it was 2001, they made it completely catch and release. You couldn't keep one. And we had fishermen, what do you mean you can't keep one? No, you can't even take it out of the water.
Yeah.
I mean, this is serious business. We're losing it, but it was a little too late. The run was too small. Habitat was getting worse. And we had that interception issue, and and it was just I think too late, and we sort of let it go, and that was sort of and we still got a really good trout fishery, so I would encourage people to come to our area and trout fish the Thompson River, and the reason the problem with the jurisdiction is a steelhead is a freshwater fish. It's a sea run rainbow trout. So it's governed by the provincial government, and the regulations being set with the netting is a federal because it's salmon. So steelhead is provincial, salmon is federal, and there's a big problem right there.
So, about a fishery that I do understand.
Okay.
Green Lake.
Yeah.
Green Lake is the warmest lake in the Cariboo. It is a gem. It is beautiful water. And when I first moved there, the trick was don't wear a black bathing suit in there because it attracted the freshwater shrimp. And so you'd get out of there and you'd have shrimp all over your black bathing suit. It was disgusting.
That sounds...
Nowhere near as disgusting as leeches or anything like that. But it's like, oh my God, I have shrimp all over my bathing suit. Anyway, the shrimp seem to have died off. I'm not sure whether it was 2017 fires or high water or whatever happened. While the shrimp were alive and well in that lake, it was very difficult to catch a fish. Hardly anybody ever caught. Like, you had to be really
because
really
that was their
good.
food, right? The shrimp.
They were full. You couldn't tempt them with a worm.
Man,
they're eating
when I got shrimp to dine on, I'm not gonna eat a worm. Come on, jeez.
So all of a sudden, we're catching fish in Green Lake, and big fish because they've been in there a long time without.
And feeding on shrimp.
Yes,
they're fattening up pretty nicely.
They're lovely, and we're catching big fish.
That's really
a guy
interesting.
brings. It looks like a salmon.
Okay.
It's like, what the heck?
That's awesome.
So
that's sort of cool.
Climate change, effects of fire. Who knows?
Well, it's,
I'm sure somebody knows, but I don't.
That's sort of a happy ending story, I mean, except for the shrimp who are gone.
Well,
but,
they were irritating to find on your black bathing suits.
Were they edible by human beings, these shrimp?
They're little.
They're little guys?
Yeah,
okay.
I wouldn't want to be trying to shell them.
Well, that's interesting. And that's sort of all I got on. You got anything else on? We could draw another topic, but I don't know.
That's my fishery story.
Halfway through.
We're about halfway through, so we could actually move on to the subject that you pulled.
Okay, what did I pull?
This one.
Okay, we're going to do both subjects today, which we can sometimes. I just love Dana with a little baby over there. It's so cool, and I can see my little Parker today, our newest grandchild, number 10. I had to shout out for Parker. And Parker Alexander is going to be at the farm today, so that's a little shout out. And we go from Parker to unsightly premises.
Unsightly premises.
When or if to report. This is your topic, so you're starting us off.
Okay. It is by no stretch of the imagination a blight to our community upgrades. And we're not upgrading our community to impress anybody. We're upgrading our communities in the fire smart way. We'd like to be able to clean up our property so that we don't have any long grass and anything that can catch fire. And dead vehicles in your yard. Man,
maybe gas in them.
I'm living with a mechanic, and he is finally retired. We're actually going to get the last of the dead vehicles out of the yard. Woo-hoo. I'm pretty excited.
No kidding.
And I'm sure my neighbor is. But convincing others that this is important. The wildfire firefighters will not and cannot fight a vehicle fire.
Okay.
They're not trained for it. They back off and let it go.
Let it go.
So after the 2017 fires, wildfire guys came and talked to me. I was elected, and they said, "You've got a whole bunch of cars out on your crown land. And we can't protect your community with them out there."
Right.
And so I went around the neighborhood with my little notice that said, if you have any vehicles on Crown land that you wish to keep, please remove them from Crown land before July 1st.
That's good. Positive
Any
way to put it.
vehicles left on Crown land after July 1st will be hauled away.
Good.
That would be one of the reasons why I get called that name. Anyway, amazingly, by July 1st, there were no vehicles on Crown land anymore. And, but now they're on private land.
Yeah, so they just moved to a different room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
It's sort of interesting, right? You know, you move the problem, but
we moved the problem.
yeah, it's sort of like, you know, yeah, moving the problem is interesting. I had an argument with my oldest son, and he says, well, Taylor goes to bed at 9 o'clock. I said, we used to have bedtimes. It's off subject, but I'm going to go off subject because he reminded me of something. And so, and I said, oh, that's great. I says, because I always had an 8 o'clock bedtime. I was saying, nobody has bedtimes anymore. Oh, yeah. That's the way Kevin is. And I says, well, does she take her cell phone with her? He said, well, yeah, of course, you know. And it says, so she's moved from where she's on her cell phone from one room to another. She hasn't gone to bed at all. Well, yeah, she has. And I says, well, no, she hasn't. She's went from the kitchen or the living room to the bedroom with her cell phone. And will she go to sleep? Well, no, I go and check on her, though, and I tell her to get off her cell phone all the time. Well, it's just like moving a problem. You haven't solved anything. You just moved the problem. You know what? How we solved it one time, it was probably 20 years ago now. We had so many cars in Spence's Bridge, like wrecks.
Yep.
And so we got together and says, you know what? And we called the company and we says, if we could get all the cars in one place, would you come haul them away for free? And it worked. So we had, I think, 25 cars. There's sort of this field in the middle of Spence's Bridge at the time, and we had them all hauled into there, and this company came, and it didn't work where the owners had to do anything with the car. We had to also get a tow truck down there and start hauling those cars down to the spot. That was about this. So you just reminded me, we actually did do a car haul.
You actually got conned. Because they'll pay you for those dead
They might have
cars.
paid. No, they may have paid because I wasn't really involved in that too much.
Yeah.
So I won't say it was for free, but they might have even paid him something, which would be even better.
Oh, yeah.
Because then it could go to your
absolutely.
community club or your volunteer society. You can get a little bit of money for it. We've got all the cars there. Pay for the tow truck and maybe put a little cash away. So there's an idea right there because I think if you go through all these drive through any little communities, there's a lot of dead cars.
But it's not, unsightly premises are not just dead
No,
cars.
it's not. No.
We have people who bought a piece of property that is way bigger than they can manage.
Right.
And actually, I hear from the TNRD planning person that the smallest lot that we can have with a septic field is 2 hectares? No, 2 hectares.
Okay.
So that's just about 5 acres.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a lot of grass to
Yeah.
mow
Yeah.
and manage.
Yeah, it is.
And so it's not enough land to graze an animal on,
Right.
and it's too much land to manage.
Yeah.
So the long dry grass and the fire smarting gets,
Yep.
it doesn't get done.
No.
And some properties are way bigger than 2 hectares.
Yeah.
And so they're fire traps.
Yep.
They're unattractive.
Yeah.
How can we manage to get a high enough density of population
Yep.
if every property has to be 2 hectares?
Right. Yep. And you have the added problem of, you can't tell your neighbor what you do. It's private property and stuff. And you might take care of your property and your neighbor do whatever they want. You can't force them to do anything. The province certainly can't come in and do anything. The province can take care of all the crown land and have it beautifully fire smarted and all that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, the property owners can do whatever the heck they want. It's sort of like, everybody in Spence's Bridge gets cherry fruit flies. So the one guy sprays his cherry tree and, I'm not going to have any cherry fruit fly. Actually, yes, you are, unless you can get all your neighbors in the entire town of Spence's Bridge because they actually fly. They're called cherry fruit flies, and they just fly over to the other tree. So it doesn't really do any good unless you have this sort of cooperative. And so it is a difficult problem. And like you said, the density being so big, it complicates the problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know my property is less than an acre.
Yeah.
But retroactively, they can't go back and make me have more property.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
but new properties have to be 2 hectares.
Yep. It'd be nice. We have a spring cleanup every year in Spencer's Bridge. It's a big event. We get the equipment from the TNRD, and the dump sort of lets us have a day there, and we get the trucks out there. But it'd be sort of nice.
You get equipment from the DNRD?
Just
for that?
the picker-upper things and stuff with the garbage and stuff. Yeah.
Wow, we didn't ever have any equipment.
Oh yeah, we went. I grabbed those and then that kind of stuff. But the thing is, that kind of stuff, does that count as the stuff and stuff? That kind of stuff.
Almost. Yeah. Yeah.
Small ding. I'm gonna big ding because I'm getting better, but I still bring it out there. Gee whiz, I think I get it back to gee whiz. But anyways, it'd be nice on that spring cleanup if we could engage like the individual property owners. Is my point to sort of on that day, let's mow lawns and let's, if you got some garbage, put it out there, and we'll do a special pickup for to get the whole towns, because you do the cleanup along the highways and the roads and stuff, but you don't go to any private properties, of course.
Yeah. The problem with a set date for spring cleanup was that the date was set by people in Kamloops, where spring comes considerably earlier than it does in 70 Mile House.
Oh, yeah,
so
that's true.
They would set this date, and at that point, most of our garbage was still frozen to the ground or under a foot of snow.
Yeah.
And no understanding of different climates.
That's right.
And I'm pretty sure Sun Peaks was in the same condition.
Sure they were.
And so was Blue River.
Sure they were. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's where you go back to the urban-rural business model. Even within a regional district, it's different. Little things like that seem silly, but no, it doesn't seem silly. If you're in a cold climate, like certainly Clinton's 10 degrees colder than Spencer's Bridge, for instance.
And it's balmy compared to 70 Mile House. We're uphill.
Exactly. Or even Blue River and the Sun Peaks. So, you need to make decisions a little bit differently. And that's where I don't think the flexibility is what it should be. That's all I'm saying. As far as making decisions as our policymakers, it's sort of a one-size-fits-all, and it's usually an urban. Oh.
I have a question.
Oh,
so
okay.
If you're saying that it wouldn't suit, like, us, would you almost want to say that rural communities should have their own TNRD, quote unquote, where it's under one sort of governing blanket system that's specific to rural needs?
That'd be one business model, that you could look at.
I think that your incorporated community has the right to decide when their spring cleanup day is and what is an unsightly premises and all of that. Although I don't think that the TNRD always, as an entity, always understands all of the area that because it's too diverse. And the area that they represent. Spencer's Bridge is a desert.
Yeah, it's semi-desert. It's rated semi-desert.
Semi-arid desert.
It is.
Merritt has grasslands. We are just about a boreal forest. Yeah. Because we are so high.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult and complex equation to satisfy the population of the TNRD. The TNRD in itself is too big.
Here's what we were doing sort of before the election, and it was just started, and they'll probably continue to do it, and they're thinking of maybe sizing down the regional district of the Thompson-Nicola Regional District, and maybe say Area E and I and stuff, maybe move it over to the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District, which is smaller. So that's one solution that will take years, probably a couple of years, maybe even longer to do if they decide to go that route. But I think what you got to look at, the business model as it is now, and then sort of figure out how to work within it. Because what we have is we have entities that Destination BC, for instance, nobody rural sitting on that board, really making tourism decisions, and so that's one. So maybe the business model where these community DMOs are rural DMOs maybe find a better way to get resources to them through Destination BC, and significant resources, so money can come in through that door, and then money come in through the regional district door. Because to divide, just have a regional district that doesn't include municipalities means you got to carve out, just in Area I alone, you'd have to carve out Lytton, Ashcroft, and Cache Creek, and then have that as a governing entity. So I think that would be difficult to do. But if you keep the sort of the same geography, but change the business model.
Well, in Alberta, they have counties,
Yeah.
and the municipalities don't sit on the county board.
Okay, well, there's
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
This is what was confusing, because I'm still a newbie coming into the community. I was like, when I was building this, I'm like, what do I call this? Because the specific area that we're reporting on.
Yep.
Spence's Bridge to 70 Mile, which is Gold Country.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well then we're covering the Gold Country region.
Corridor.
Right.
So I call it the region. I'm like, is
Yeah.
this the actual, what is Gold Country?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a community.
It's a destination marketing organization.
Yeah.
And in fact, that was an example, that boundary, when it included Merritt and M&N and Lillooet. I actually thought that was a possible example of a different regional district.
Right.
It would be a smaller regional district.
Right.
And it was pointed,
Yeah.
out to me by, somebody who used to be a mayor and now is again, that we needed a big city to pay the bills. And
Yeah.
I thought perhaps if that's true, then the people of Kamloops might like to hear that.
Yes.
Because if the big cities are paying the bills for the regional district,
Yeah.
the city of Kamloops needs to know that.
Yeah.
I think that the way, if that's true, there's a big problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Sally said, it's a complicated one. You'd have to start untangling some things. You'd have to put different people in different places. When Sally brings up the old boys club, the old boys club still exists in a lot of entities. Not a lot, but certainly some entities that are important. You need diversity, a lot more diversity in government, from young to old to, in our...
Opinions. Diversity
Yeah.
should be also a diverse opinion.
Yes.
We all have to be under the same
That's right.
blanket.
Yeah.
So we all say,
Yeah.
I think.
There was
It should
a
be.
phrase that you might find entertaining. It's pale, stale males. And I know you don't appreciate that as much as I do.
Doesn't really bother me. I
don't
hadn't
get
heard
it?
it before.
Old
though.
white guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I'm an old white guy, so
I know,
I can
I know.
say old white guys because I'm one of them.
Yeah.
But it's we really need diversity. I mean, it's truly amazing to me that we're not represented the way properly as far as I'm concerned in DBC at the regional district. We've never had an Indigenous director. How can that be? This is a hugely Indigenous area and stuff. An Indigenous person should be sitting on that board, but more than one. There's 27 now on that board, and
From what I understand, because I've definitely brought up this question before, because as a news reporter, I've been in so many different offices where it's like, well, where the heck are all the other people's opinions here? Why is there nobody? And I've said, well, to other groups, go to these meetings, and one woman who actually ran for the NDP at some point, she said, we're tired because we've done it. We've all been sitting in these spots and our voices were never heard, and eventually we got bullied out. So I think with that, it's great.
Yep.
Maybe
To that point, to that point, that's why I asked Autumn, young, brilliant, activist Indigenous woman to be my alternate for this last election, because I says, you know what, you can sort of learn it and then hopefully go in. And even after I lost, I says, still think about running next term, because that's the kind of voice we need. We need your kind of voice at that table, because when you're talking, say, the 2017 fire, and you did the Abbott Chapman report and things like that, and one of the big things that came up there, communications between and emergencies between First Nations and local government. Well, that's great, but it'd be nice to have somebody on the local government at the local government table to lend to the conversation, and maybe be a knowledge keeper that would help the entire board say, hey, Autumn, what do you think, and stuff like this. What would be a good way to, I just don't know.
And I do understand that we're tired.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it is.
The only people who aren't tired are the older white people men.
Yeah.
And
They stay there and stay there and stay there.
oh yeah, and I don't even know what the driving force is if you manage to get nothing done and you keep on going to these meetings. It's like, wow, that's impressive. Because I was always dissatisfied if I couldn't have change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
well,
then I was there to create change.
And if you're there, you do stay at some pretty nice places on the waterfront and eat, drink. And I tell you, I would have never stayed at the places I stayed at. And you get to bring your spouse. So Paulette came a lot of times. And I'll tell you, we would have never, ever went to any one of those places if I had not gotten elected. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there is a draw
there
there.
are some perks.
There
Yeah.
are some perks and things like that. So I could see why, certain folks stick around.
That's the answer why I don't think that maybe there's enough diverse
And-
opinion.
Yeah.
And
People try.
I believe that the intent is to have First Nations voices on regional boards. And that would be why regional boards need to think about changing their boundaries, because if the TNRD is currently 27 people and you get an elected official from each First Nations council, I think you're way above 50.
Way above 50, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that means that board needs to be split in half so that we're back down to something maybe a little more manageable.
Yeah, you'd have to.
And a little more currently available in our neighborhood, so we understand our own neighborhoods.
Yeah.
I wonder if there has something to do with address. Because if you have an address on a reserve, you can't really run for council or anything, right?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
You can?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I can and did run as an MLA in the Caribou Chilcotin, and I don't live there.
Yep.
So someone from the reserve could run.
Oh, yeah,
someone from
absolutely.
your
Oh,
Yep.
absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Although I cannot run as a counselor on a Bonaparte Bend.
No.
No.
But, okay.
Okay. Well, like I said,
Okay.
I'd really like to get Frank Antoine in to talk with us one day. I think we have a lot to learn from him, and everybody has a lot to learn about how First Nations governments are run.
Yeah, and I'd like to, maybe start bringing in a guest every once in a while, when we move on to the next show, and Frank maybe one time, and maybe somebody else talking about something else, because it's nice to get a third perspective, and it's nice to have Dana sort of weighing in too when she's got a question or thing. I know she's working on some grants and having some real issues there, and we had some conversation around grants on our show today. And I shouldn't say our show today, but we're recorded right now, everybody. So that's why I said show today. But every Wednesday, 10 a.m., and check us out and we'll be doing a live show eventually. Are we still going to go live eventually? Do you think?
September, my goal is to get, like I just said, I want satellite internet. Our biggest barrier is the powerful internet, because once I have it, I can use my system here.
Okay.
Around, we're connected.
So we're shooting to go live at
live.
some point, which is
Okay.
good. Which is good.
So another person that I think would be really interesting to have would be a counselor from Lytton.
Oh, yeah.
Because we all are very curious about what's happening in Lytton. And,
that would be good. Yes.
And I miss Jesua.
Oh, it would be great to have Jessica on the show.
It would be.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
if you can think of
Yeah.
somebody who you'd like us to have as
Yep.
a guest speaker,
Yeah.
or somebody that you'd like to send questions to,
Yeah.
please let us know. That's hello@valleytv.ca.
You're getting it down.
I
Hello,
am.
hello.
I know.
Just think hello at valleytv.ca.
Yeah.
Okay. I like
All
it.
right.
I can do that
All right.
now. I think I got it down. Okay. Well, where are we at? We got 10 minutes to go. 8 minutes, 10?
10.
Okay.
All
so
right.
that's our freelance thing. I don't know if I have anything. I'm doing pretty good on the stuff and stuff. So thank you all out there for bearing with me, ringing my bell and trying to get rid of that. And so you got anything you want to talk about?
So, other than our weather is interfering with my chicken crop.
Oh.
Now, not everybody fully understands this, but the fastest chicken breed that I can get is a Cornish giant.
Okay.
And they're from hatch to slaughter is 8 weeks, and 6 weeks for fryer, and maybe 10 weeks for roaster, but it's a really fast
Okay.
chicken. Well,
Chicken in the express lane kind
Yeah.
of thing. Okay.
because of our elevation
Yeah.
and the really cold nights and
Yeah.
hot days, I'm having some chicken mortality.
Ooh, not
Yes,
good. Yeah, geez.
So I'm upset
yeah,
about
well,
chickens dying before I can kill them.
whoa,
And
yeah, and I've never heard that the term chicken crop. So
Yeah.
that sort of shocked me,
Yeah.
surprised me. We have chickens. We lost all of them in the flood. Not in the flood. We lost them all in the subsequent freezing in December. They
Yeah.
sort of froze or coyote their way out. But we're back into replacement chicks, and we got. But ours are not a crop. They're those.
Yeah, you have laying hens.
They do those egg things.
Yeah,
different
yeah.
colored egg things and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So that's not a
Yeah.
crop, is it?
No, I also have turkeys.
Yeah,
I
is
have-
that a crop also?
Yes,
Okay.
I have 13 beautiful turkeys. They seem to be very hardy this year. And,
Okay,
yeah,
okay. So you have crop of chicken and turkeys
and rabbits.
and rabbits.
And rabbits.
And I have crops of tomatoes,
Yeah.
peaches,
Yeah.
cucumbers. We both have crops.
Yep.
Boy, we would be a good meal together.
Yeah.
I tell
yeah,
you
we
what,
could- yeah. Would your family eat a rabbit?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think most of them have had wild meat and
Well,
or
they-
not tame meat. and
these-
different meat.
Going out and shooting yourself a jackrabbit is an iffy proposition
Yeah.
if you're looking for a
I have
good
friends
meal.
that trap them though.
Yeah, I know, but they're lean and mean, and
Okay.
you have no idea how old they are.
Yeah.
And mine are 8 weeks old.
Oh, okay. There you
know?
go. There you go.
And they're not cute; they're delicious.
Yeah. Well, ours are cute, and their eggs are good, and different colors, and